Arthur Conan Doyle, The Return of Sherlock Holmes. The Adventure of the Solitary Cyclist, Part 3. He ran wildly, holding his pistol, towards a gap in the hedge. Holmes followed him, and I, leaving the horse eating grass by the road, followed Holmes. "This is where they came through," said he, pointing to the marks of several feet on the muddy path. "Wait a moment. Who is this in the bushes?" It was a young man, about 17 years old, dressed like a stable boy, with leather trousers and gaiters. He lay on his back, his knees pulled up, with a terrible wound on his head. He was unconscious but still alive. One look at the wound showed me that it had not gone into the bone. "That is Peter, the groom," cried the stranger. "He drove her. Those animals pulled him down and beat him. Let him stay. We cannot help him now, but we may save her from the worst fate that can happen to a woman." We ran wildly down the path, which turned between the trees. We reached the bushes around the house when Holmes suddenly stopped. "They did not go to the house. Here are their marks to the left. Here, near the laurel bushes." "Ah, I thought so." As he spoke, a woman's sharp scream broke out from the thick bushes in front of us. It was a scream full of terror. It suddenly stopped at its highest point with a choking sound. "This way! This way! They are in the bowling green!" cried the stranger, running through the bushes. "Ah, those cowardly villains! Follow me, gentlemen! Too late! Too late!" We suddenly came into a beautiful open space with grass, surrounded by old trees. On the far side, under a large oak tree, there stood a strange group of 3 people. One was a woman, our client, weak and faint, with a cloth around her mouth. Opposite her stood a rough young man with a red mustache and a heavy face. He stood with his legs wide apart, one arm on his side and the other waving a riding crop. His whole manner showed pride and cruelty. Between them stood an older man with a gray beard, wearing a short white church robe over a light suit. He had just finished a wedding ceremony, because he put his prayer book in his pocket as we arrived and slapped the groom on the back in a cheerful way. "They are married!" I cried. "Come on!" shouted our guide. "Come on!" He ran across the grass, with Holmes and me close behind him. As we came near, the lady leaned against the tree for support. Williamson, the former clergyman, bowed to us in a false, polite way, and the rough man Woodley stepped forward with loud and cruel laughter. "You can take off your beard now, Bob," said he. "I know you well. Well, you and your friends have come just in time for me to introduce you to Mrs. Woodley." Our guide answered in a surprising way. He tore off the dark beard that had hidden his face and threw it on the ground, showing a long, pale, clean-shaven face. Then he raised his revolver and aimed it at the young ruffian who was coming toward him with his riding crop in his hand. "Yes," said our ally, "I am Bob Carruthers, and I will see that this woman gets justice, even if I have to die for it. I told you what I would do if you harmed her, and I will keep my word. You are too late. She is my wife. No, she is your widow." His revolver fired, and I saw blood burst from the front of Woodley's coat. He turned around with a scream and fell on his back. His ugly red face suddenly became pale and terrible. The old man, still wearing his church robe, began to shout terrible insults, the worst I have ever heard. He pulled out his own revolver, but before he could raise it, he was staring into the barrel of Holmes's gun. "Enough of this," said my friend coldly. "Drop that pistol. Watson, pick it up. Hold it to his head. Thank you. You, Carruthers, give me that revolver. There will be no more violence. Come, give it to me." "Who are you?" "My name is Sherlock Holmes." "Good Lord!" "You have heard of me, I see. I will act as the police until they arrive. You, he shouted to a frightened stable boy who had appeared at the edge of the clearing. "Come here. Take this note and ride as fast as you can to Farnham." He quickly wrote a few words on a page from his notebook. "Give it to the superintendent at the police station. Until he comes, I will keep all of you here under my control." Holmes's strong and confident personality took control of the whole situation, and everyone followed his orders. Williamson and Carruthers carried the wounded Woodley into the house, and I helped the frightened young woman. The injured man was placed on his bed, and at Holmes's request, I examined him. Then I went back to Holmes, who was sitting in the old dining room with tapestries on the walls, with the two prisoners in front of him. "He will live," I said. "What?" cried Carruthers, jumping from his chair. "I will go upstairs and finish him now. Do you mean that that girl, that angel, must be tied to that terrible man Woodley for life?" "You do not need to worry about that," said Holmes. "There are two very good reasons why she cannot be his wife. First, we can strongly question Mr. Williamson's right to perform a marriage." "I have been ordained," cried the old criminal, "and also removed from your position. Once a clergyman, always a clergyman." "I do not think so. And what about the license?" "We had a marriage license. I have it here in my pocket." "Then you got it by a trick. But in any case, a forced marriage is not a real marriage. It is a very serious crime, as you will soon learn. You will have time to think about it for the next 10 years or so, unless I am mistaken. And as for you, Carruthers, it would have been better if you had kept your pistol in your pocket." "I am beginning to think so, Mr. Holmes. But when I thought about all the care I had taken to protect this girl, for I loved her, Mr. Holmes, and it is the only time I have ever known what love is, it drove me almost mad to think that she was in the power of the worst brute and bully in South Africa. He is a man whose name is feared from Kimberley to Johannesburg. Mr. Holmes, you may not believe it, but ever since that girl came to work for me, I never let her pass this house, where I knew these criminals were hiding, without following her on my bicycle to make sure she was safe. I always stayed far from her, and I wore a beard so she would not recognize me. She is a good and strong girl, and she would not have stayed with me if she had known that I was following her along the country roads." "Why did you not tell her about the danger?" "Because then she would have left me, and I could not accept that. Even if she could not love me, it meant a lot to me just to see her moving around the house and to hear her voice." "Well," said I, "you call that love, Mr. Carruthers, but I would call it selfishness. Maybe those two things are connected. Anyway, I could not let her go. Also, with these men around, it was good that someone was there to protect her. Then when the telegram came, I knew they would take action." "What telegram?" Carruthers took a message from his pocket. "This one," said he. It was short and clear. "The old man is dead." Said Holmes. "I think I understand what happened, and I see how this message could make everything happen quickly. But while we wait, you can tell me what you know." The old man in the church robe suddenly began to shout many bad words. "By heaven," he said, "if you betray us, Bob Carruthers, I will treat you the same way you treated Jack Woodley. You can talk about the girl as much as you like. That is your own business. But if you turn against your friends and tell this plain-clothes policeman, it will be the worst mistake of your life." "You do not need to be so angry," said Holmes, lighting a cigarette. "The case against you is already clear. I only want a few details for my own curiosity. If you do not want to speak, I will explain things myself, and then you will see how much you can keep secret. First, 3 of you came from South Africa for this matter. You, Williamson, you, Carruthers, and Woodley." "That is a lie," said the old man. "I never saw either of them until 2 months ago, and I have never been to Africa in my life." So you can remember that, Mr. Holmes." "What he says is true," said Carruthers. "Well then, 2 of you came from South Africa. This gentleman here is from England. You knew Ralph Smith in South Africa. You believed he would not live long. You found out that his niece would receive his money. Is that correct?" Carruthers nodded, and Williamson swore angrily. "She was the closest relative, no doubt. And you knew that the old man would not make a will." "He could not read or write," said Carruthers. "So the 2 of you came to England and found the girl. The plan was that one of you would marry her, and the other would share the money. For some reason, Woodley was chosen as the husband. Why was that?" "We played cards for her on the ship. He won." "I see. You brought the young lady into your service, and Woodley was supposed to court her there. She saw that he was a drunken brute and refused him. Meanwhile, your plan was disturbed because you yourself fell in love with her. You could no longer accept the idea that this ruffian would have her."
"No, by George, I could not."
"There was a quarrel between you. He left you in anger and began to make his own plans without you." "It seems to me, Williamson, that there is not much left for us to tell this gentleman," cried Carruthers with a bitter laugh. "Yes, we quarreled, and he knocked me down. At least I have paid him back for that now. Then I lost track of him. That was when he joined this false priest here. I discovered that they were living together at this place, on the road that she had to take to the station. After that, I watched her, because I knew something bad was coming. I saw them from time to time, because I wanted to know what they were planning. 2 days ago, Woodley came to my house with this telegram, which showed that Ralph Smith was dead. He asked me if I would keep to our agreement. I said no. He asked if I would marry the girl myself and give him a share. I said I would gladly do that, but she would not accept me. He said, 'Let us marry her first, and after a week or 2 she may change her mind.' I said I would not be part of any violence. So he left, shouting insults as he always did, and swore that he would still get her. She was leaving me this weekend, and I had arranged a carriage to take her to the station. But I felt uneasy, so I followed her on my bicycle. She had already gone ahead, and before I could reach her, the crime had happened. The first thing I knew was when I saw you 2 gentlemen driving back in her dog cart." Holmes stood up and threw the end of his cigarette into the fireplace. "I have been very slow to understand, Watson," said he. "When you told me that you saw the cyclist, as you thought, fixing his tie in the bushes, that alone should have explained everything to me. However, we can be pleased with this strange and, in some ways, unique case. I can see 3 local policemen coming up the drive, and I am glad to see that the young stable boy is able to keep up with them. So it is likely that neither he nor the interesting bridegroom will be seriously hurt by this morning's events. I think, Watson, that as a doctor you should go to Miss Smith and tell her that if she feels well enough, we will be happy to take her to her mother's home. If she is not fully recovered, you may find that telling her we are about to send a telegram to a young electrical engineer in the Midlands will probably help her recover quickly. As for you, Mr. Carruthers, I think you have done what you could to make up for your part in this bad plan. Here is my card, sir. If my evidence can help you in your trial, I will gladly give it. During our busy work, it has often been difficult for me, as the reader may have noticed, to properly finish my stories and give all the final details that one might expect. Each case has led to another, and when the main event is over, the people involved disappear from our busy lives. However, I find a short note at the end of my papers about this case. In it, I wrote that Miss Violet Smith did indeed receive a large fortune, and that she is now the wife of Cyril Morton, the senior partner of Morton and Kennedy, the well-known electrical company in Westminster. Williamson and Woodley were both put on trial for kidnapping and assault. Williamson received 7 years in prison, and Woodley received 10. I have no record of what happened to Carruthers, but I am sure that the court did not judge him too harshly, since Woodley was known as a very dangerous man. I think that a few months in prison were enough to satisfy justice.